Messages from the Future, Episode 2. You're watching this in 2026. There's still time. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. I was once a doctor. 18 years as a surgeon. I held a scalpel. I opened abdomens, cut out cancers, sutured hearts. Hundreds of lives passed through these hands. I was proud of that. Then in 2041, I was removed from the operating room. Not fired. They used the phrase role completion. What replaced me was not another surgeon. It was AI and nanomachines 0.5 millimeters in diameter. I still remember the silence of that day, the sound of the operating room door closing. Through the glass, a surgical table with no physician. The patient was under anesthesia. The nanomachines entered the body, located the tumor, excised it, sutured the site. Discharged 72 hours post-op. No complications. It did what I did. Better. This is not a vision of the future. This is what I witnessed. And now I'm writing to you, to 2026, because this transformation had warning signs. Signs I missed. Signs that were already buried in plain sight. From where you sit in 2026, here is what you see. AI has taken hold as a diagnostic aid. Imaging AI is reducing missed findings in radiology. In dermatology, a single photograph detects melanoma. Headlines in medical journals read, AI achieves accuracy equivalent to human physicians. The medical establishment says AI is merely a tool. The final judgment belongs to the human doctor. Most physicians believed that. I believed it too. But looking back now, that wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the end. No one thought carefully about the word equivalent. Equivalent means it has caught up. And what catches up always overtakes. That is the physics of technology. By 2026, medical AI error rates in certain domains had already fallen below human performance. Imaging diagnostics, dermatology, ophthalmology, in these focused areas, humans had already lost. The regulatory and insurance frameworks kept full deployment at bay. Those walls took 10 years to fall. And nanomachines? In 2026, they still look like a laboratory curiosity. But the pieces were already in place. Lipid nanoparticles, navigating blood vessels, magnetic field-guided microcarriers, DNA origami nanostructures. Each piece, individually, just delivered drugs. Around 2028, targeted therapy precision began to leap forward. In 2033, feedback-controlled microdevices received clinical approval. Autonomous surgical nanomachines came after. Scattered pieces crossed a threshold and snapped together all at once. And there is one more shift you haven't noticed yet. AlphaFold 3, released in 2024, solved the problem of protein structure prediction. It became possible to design the molecular architecture underlying disease. What this means, the very idea of cutting it out surgically had already begun to age. It wasn't that surgeons disappeared. It was that the diseases requiring a cut began to disappear. The turning point was not a single event. 3 waves converged, and before each wave, there was always a moment when everything appeared to pause. The first wave, the diagnostic precision revolution of 2029. Integrated platforms emerged, combining multiple medical AI systems, blood panels, imaging, genetic data, medication history, gait data, sleep patterns, all synthesized in real time into a unified diagnostic engine. If individual AIs were equivalent, integrated AI was overwhelming. This system detected a stage 1 pancreatic cancer I had missed. The patient had no symptoms. I had said, watchful waiting. The AI flagged it for immediate investigation. The AI was right. That case became medical litigation. The insurance industry moved. A clause was written. If a physician overrules an AI-recommended examination and cancer progresses, coverage is denied. That was the first moment physician authority was effectively stripped. What changed was not the technology, it was the structure of incentives. The second wave, nanomachine clinical authorization in 2033. The United States and Singapore granted conditional approval simultaneously. The initial indication was palliative use in terminal cancer patients, but the results were dramatic. Survival rates shifted, pain resolved. Patients who no longer needed surgery appeared. The regulatory walls were dismantled by the voices of patients. Japan issued conditional approval in 2035. By 2038, indications had expanded to general surgical use. But there is something I must say here. In 2037, a cyber attack hit a medical network. Nanomachine updates for patients were suspended for 72 hours. Just as an electrified society becomes vulnerable in a blackout, bodies dependent on nanomachines became hostages to network failure. The deeper technology enters the body, the deeper its failure wounds the body. That lesson generated new safety standards and, ironically, accelerated the very regulatory frameworks that legitimized the technology. The third wave, the intersection with the physician shortage. Rural hospitals were already collapsing. No doctors would come. The elderly population grew. Patients multiplied. Into this reality, AI and nanomachines were offered as solutions. When it was shown that costs could be cut by 2/3, the government did not hesitate. Between 2039 and 2041, when all three waves converged, the structure of medicine changed. I was removed from the operating room inside that surge. The walls fell slowly until they didn't. Once they fell, everything moved fast. Let me describe what medicine looks like in 2045. You wake in the morning. Pressure sensors in your mattress have been recording heart rate variability through the night. You use the bathroom. A urine analysis runs automatically. These systems sync with nanosensors inside your body. Changes in your condition are detected by the system before you notice them yourself. A notification arrives. Inflammatory markers elevated. Examination recommended today. You do not need to go to a clinic. You connect via smartphone. The AI analyzes additional blood components, presents candidate diagnoses, identifies the highest priority concern. If needed, therapeutic nanomachines are prescribed. Swallowed, they enter the body, reach the affected site, perform their work, and dissolve. Hospitalization, except for severe cases, has nearly ceased. Surgical procedures still exist, but the operator is not human. I want to pose a question here. When internal sensors collect your biological data continuously, around the clock, whose data is it? Yours? A medical corporation's? An insurance company's? The state's? By 2045, an answer to that question exists, written into law. And the people who wrote that law were not who you might imagine. You could say, a society in which being healthy is managed had arrived. Where are the doctors? They're still here. But the role has changed, explaining AI-generated diagnoses and treatment plans to patients, and obtaining consent, addressing psychological and social problems the AI cannot handle, supervising the edge cases that fall outside the system. This became the primary work of physicians. But a deeper question remains. In a world where nanomachines erase pain and eliminate complications, the meaning of experiencing illness has changed. More people have no memory of fighting a disease. More people have never suffered. When they face death, what will they feel? What is the difference between a life efficiently cured and the life that came before it? I still don't have an answer. In 2045, physicians who continued practicing the pre-AI way lost their positions. Those who adapted were only those who could migrate to new roles. But, and I am among those who survived, I do not believe the colleagues who didn't survive were people without value. That is a separate question entirely. Let me start with the beneficiaries, patients, at least patients in developed nations. In Japan by 2045, 5-year cancer survival rates had risen dramatically. Early detection had become routine. Surgical risk had vanished. Long-term healthcare costs had declined. Medical inequality narrowed in some ways and widened in others. The gap that narrowed, regional inequality. Even where there are no physicians, AI and nanomachines can be delivered. The gap that widened, inequality between nations. Countries that possessed nanomachine technology and those that did not diverged in life expectancy. In advanced nations, average lifespan exceeded 90. Nations unable to import the technology were left behind with their old medical infrastructure intact. This was not merely economic inequality. Just as Monsanto once held patents on seeds, corporations holding nanomachine patents held the foundations of medicine. A world arrived in which who gets cured is determined by nationality and economic power. The phrase medical colonization began to be used, not as metaphor. And there is one more divide, the inequality within the medical profession itself, between physicians who survived and those who disappeared. The ones who disappeared most often were those who kept saying, AI is just a tool. I cannot mock them for saying it. The fact that professional medical associations repeated that line was not stupidity. It was the same structure as the Catholic Church insisting, during the print revolution, that manuscripts carry authority. As an act of professional self-preservation, it was a rational position. But against economic logic, those words carried no weight. I had a colleague who was a better surgeon than I was. He did not learn the new systems. More accurately, he couldn't. He had a family member requiring full-time care. He was bound to a rural hospital. He simply was not in a position to move. It is easy to say, those who adapted survived. But why was I in a position to notice when others weren't? I still haven't let go of that question. Adaptation is not purely a matter of individual awareness. Time, financial stability, and geography played a decisive role in determining who survived. That cannot be looked away from. So if this future arrives, where should you look today? 3 places. The first, companies with foundational nanomachine technology. The finished product doesn't exist yet, but companies already hold the pieces, the materials, the guidance systems, the mechanisms for communication inside the body. Drug delivery systems, precision magnetic guidance instruments, biosensors, nanomaterial manufacturing technology. Unglamorous, but the hardest to replace. There is a signal worth watching. The FDA's Breakthrough Device Designation, the EMA's PRIME scheme. The lists of companies selected for these programs are public. They are leading indicators that let you sense, before the regulatory walls fall, exactly how they will fall. One important caveat: technology adoption timelines always run longer than predicted, and the dominant player may be a company that does not yet exist. Rather than asking, what should I buy? The more durable long-term question is, what companies have characteristics that retain value across multiple scenarios? The second, the infrastructure connecting AI and medicine. Electronic health records, telemedicine platforms, medical data standardization. Unglamorous, but the most critical layer. No matter how powerful a diagnostic AI, it cannot function without data. Consolidation is already underway in this space. Rather than looking for new entrants, the realistic approach is to find AI diagnostic layer companies built on integration with existing platforms. The third, the human perimeter of medicine. The more AI automates medicine, the more valuable the domains AI cannot reach become. Psychiatric care, end-of-life care, patient education. These are resistant to mechanization, though to be honest, communicating and being present alongside someone were, by 2045, already being partially handled by emotion recognition AI. The territory I could claim as something only a human can do was narrower than I expected. Still, if there remains meaning in a human being present, in a human voice speaking, holding that question may itself become the axis of an investment thesis. Finally, the most important point: the investment in yourself. Investment in your skills and investment in your portfolio need not be treated separately. Designing a version of yourself whose value increases as AI advances, and searching for companies whose value increases as AI advances are two sides of the same question. The day I was removed from the operating room, I did nothing for 6 months. For 18 years, I had been a doctor who can operate. The fact that it hadn't become something I couldn't do, but something that was no longer needed, that destroyed me. Then a patient said something to me. Because you explained it to me, I wasn't afraid. An AI couldn't have done that. That was the moment I changed. My value was never in cutting. It was in telling. It was in being there. But I have to be honest here. I can no longer say, this is something AI will never be able to do. By 2045, emotion recognition AI was listening to my explanations and suggesting a clearer way to put that. If there was value in my ability to communicate, perhaps it was not because I was human. Perhaps it was because you were there, that specific person, in that specific moment. Is that truly something only a human can do? I don't have the answer. But I believe that continuing to face that question is the reason I am still here. To you in 2026, change is coming, faster than you predict, larger in scale than you imagine. Change will end old roles, but new roles will not welcome everyone. Structural conditions will determine who can adapt and who cannot. That fact must not be looked away from. You are reading this. That alone means you are already in a position to move. So if this future arrives, where should you look today? By now you already know.